Hello friends, it's Cassie and welcome back to my channel for another video. Today my video features a card that I made for a blog hop. This is a collaboration between Heffy Doodle, SugarPea Designs, and Marker Forte. And I'm going to have all that information linked and listed down below in my description box, so you're going to want to head to my blog. Okay, so let's discuss our products. I'm going to be using these hats from the Wanna Build a Snowman stamp set by Heffy Doodle, and then I'm going to be using these darling pandas from the Pandtastic painters, and I'm also going to be using the matching dies. From SugarPea Designs, I have this Oh So Jolly Sentiments, and it's got some holly berries and leaves and great sentiments. And then we're also going to be using the Snow Globe SugarCut. Now there's an extra die in there that I just happen to stick in there. That circle doesn't come with it, just to let you know. All right, now from Marker Forte, we have the Modern Christmas Trees Stencil, and I also have some Slimline card fronts, and then we have an array of inks, and I'll talk about those as we get to them. So let's jump right into it. I have pulled out one of those pre-cut panels, and I'm going to take the Slimline die, and I'm going to take the first one and just tack it down using some Heffy tape. I'm putting that Heffy tape on the back. That'll ensure that that stencil stays in place mostly. And then I'm going to pull out that first color. That is the Tiptree Jam, and these are water reactive inks. Now I didn't use these like making a smushed background or anything like that, but just know that you could do that with these inks. They're vibrant, they're beautiful, and then I'm going to bring in our next die, and these layer over the top of each other really nicely. Once again, using that tape. And then my next color is this Pop Art. And again, this is water reactive. So I'm just blending these on over those trees. I will use the water reactive properties later on, but just for this part, they blend. Just know they blend really well also. Whoops, we did have a little bit of a shift. Thankfully, it's easy enough to line back up, and then I'll finish up with those last couple of trees. Now the next color I bring in is not water reactive. It is in fact an alcohol marker pad. This one is the Fog color, and I would imagine that this is really good for no-line coloring with your alcohol markers. Now I didn't obviously use it for that, but I really wanted to pull in that color. I thought it would be nice to blend that on those edges, kind of make it so that it's not quite so white vibrant, and it worked fine for that. I mean, it's not like the best blending ink, but that's not what it's intended for. It's intended for alcohol marker coloring. So I'll clean up my mess, and now I want to do some splattering. So this is where that water reactive comes in. The Pop Art, I'll just put a little squeeze of water and my paintbrush, and then I'll splatter that all over my background. Splatter makes everything better. And so then I'll also do the same thing with our Tiptree Jam. And just a little bit of water, and splatter, splatter, splatter. And I am happy with that background. So we'll set that off to the side to dry, and we'll move on to our stamping. So I have stamped out my images using another ink pad, and this is the Eclipse Black from Marker Forte, and it is alcohol marker friendly as well. In fact, I was a little hesitant to use it, I'll be honest with you, because sometimes it seems like when you grab out a new ink that says it's good for alcohol marker coloring, sometimes they are, but my biggest pet peeve has always been that you have to like heat set some of those, or you have to let them dry for a while, and I'm not patient enough to do that. This ink pad was fabulous. It made a nice, juicy, dark black line. That could be because it's a new ink pad, but it also, I didn't have to wait even a little bit before I started coloring, and that ink did not smear at all. And the only other time I've really had that has been with my Memento Tuxedo Black ink. Now I like all the other black ink pads, they're great, but sometimes I'm just not patient enough to either heat set or wait for it to dry, and I just want to get into my coloring. And so this ink pad is fabulous for that. I imagine the Fog is the same way. So all I'm doing is using these colors that you see up on the screen. I start lightest to darkest. That's just how I color. It works best for me. You do you. And I just used two colors. These are smaller images, and they're super simple. Pandas are fabulous to color because they're easy, right? Use those just grays to make the black marks, and then you don't have to worry too much about colors blending well or not. And yeah, they turned out great. So then I'm going to come in with my C1 marker and just put a little bit of shadowing and shading on those white parts so that it isn't so stark white. and then we'll color those hats. Now, all I need are the hats from those penguins, and so I've brought in these colors. We've got RV25 for our pinks. That matched the Tiptree jam pretty well, and RV09, then I'll blend that out a little bit. And then for our like blue-green, I've got a BG13 and a G17. Believe it or not, the G17 works well here because it matched the pop art pretty well, and then I'll blend that out also. I'll bring in that C1 Copic one more time just to add a little bit of shadowing to our white parts on the hats. And then we're going to do something I know so many of you hate, which is fussy cut these out. You could use the matching die that goes along with this and then just cut it right off the penguin's head at the top. But I just decided, since this was, in my opinion, easy enough to fussy cut, I'm just going to fussy cut all around all those hats. And to do that, I'm just cutting right on the line. I'm not leaving a white border or anything like that, just cutting right on that line. And then you'll notice that when I have each of these cut out, there is a little bit of a white. You can see a little bit of white, and that's from the edge of the cardstock. And if that doesn't bother you, don't worry about it. But the next step I'm going to do is bring in my Memento marker. And I'm just going to run it along the side of that marker, along the side of my fussy cut out image, and that will cover up that white line that is right on each of those pieces. So I know that fussy cutting, especially smaller images like this, can be a little bit daunting, especially if you have issues with your hands, but just know that you could use your die cut to cut it out, and then just cut it off the penguin's head. All right, we're going to bring in those matching dies for our Pandtastic painters. Tack that down with a little bit of Heffy tape. And then we're going to run this through our mini die cutting machine by Heffy Doodle. I love this machine. As you can tell, I use it so much. I've had to replace those cutting plates a couple times actually now because I use it so much. All right, and then you're going to have these lovely little images all cut out with a nice white border. I'm going to attach down the hats. You'll see how perfectly these hats go with these images. It's like they were almost made for each of these little bears. And so I took a set that wasn't necessarily intended for Christmas, and I made it a winter scene. I love that. So our pandas are done. Now I'm going to move on to doing a little bit more die cutting, and this is where our snow globe SugarCut comes in. I took that fog ink pad and put it right on my paper because I do want the base of my snow globe to be gray, match everything else. So I'll tack that down with some washi or some Heffy tape. And then before I put down the top part of my snow globe, I want to stamp my sentiment. That will make it that much easier to line up the die over the top of that. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp out Merry Christmas, and I'll use the Eclipse black again, and it stamps beautifully. And another thing I love about it is it cleans off your stamps just with water. Perfect and super easy. So nice and crisp. And then I'm kind of trying to, see where that's going to go because I do want to stamp the tiny holly berry and leaf that comes in this set. But I'll wait with that until after everything is die cut out. So we'll use a little more Heffy tape, tack this down, and run that through our die cutting machine. Now I'll bring in that Tiptree jam and pop art again to put a holly berry and a leaf at the top of Merry Christmas. And then I am going to bring in that fog ink again when I'm done with all my stamping, because I do want to have a little bit of contrast. If I just put this right back in there, it would be hard to see the snow. Before I do that, I do want to have some color around the edge. So I have used that Heffy tape to block off where the snow is, and then I'll bring in my pop art and just tap that right down on the edge of my die cut. Clean up my mess and pull that away. And then this is where I'll bring in that fog ink. And I was trying to decide exactly where to put it, but I decided I would put it on the snow. So we're just going to bring it in on that snow. And it doesn't look like much here, but you'll see it when I bring in the Merry Christmas piece again. So it doesn't look like a lot, but you'll definitely see the difference now. And I like that. I like that a lot. All right, now I need to kind of get my edges a little bit contrasted. So I did use the Eclipse black. Again, these are not for blending. They're for alcohol marker coloring, but I'm using what I have. And sometimes we just have to do that. And they blended well enough. Okay, so assembly time. So I'll put a little bit of liquid glue on the back part of my base for the snow globe and attach that down. to the snow, and then I'll attach this other piece. This just kind of gives a little more depth to our snow globe. And then now we can attach this piece to our Slimline panel. Our Slimline panel is all dry, ready for some action. So we'll glue this piece down using that Barely Art glue. And then I'm going to bring in the Merry Christmas, the inner part of our snow globe. There was another die in this that you could cut out some snow, but I just decided not to make this into a shaker or use any of that snow. But just know the options there. My base was cut down to 7 inches by 8.5 inches and scored at 3.5 inches. And then I'm just reinforcing that score line. Before I attach down those two pandas, because at this point I wasn't sure if I wanted to use foam tape, I'm going to do the inside of our card. So once again, another sentiment using that Eclipse black, joy to the world. And then we'll bring in another couple holly berries. This is the bigger holly berry in that Oh So Jolly Sentiment stamp set. And then the bigger leaves, we'll bring that in with our pop art. Stamp that down, lines up nicely. And then we'll take the one little panda and we'll put him on the inside. He's so cute. All right, we'll reinforce that score line again. And then we can attach down our panel to our base using some more of that liquid glue. And I like liquid glue because it does give a little bit of wiggle room, because oftentimes I can't get it on there straight. And then I did decide to just go ahead and use that liquid glue to adhere down the pandas, but foam tape would be fun. I chose liquid glue because this is, you know, a Christmas card, and I don't want a whole bunch of extra bulk, especially when you're sending out so many cards at Christmas. And then for a final bit of embellishment, I did bring in these HAI clear sequins, and I'm just sticking those down using my pickup stick. I do want to mention that I stamped my images, my little pandas, onto some Express It cardstock. That is alcohol marker friendly cardstock as well. And once I've gotten all of those sequins on there, that is going to finish off our card for today. So like I said, this is a part of a blog hop. My blog is going to be linked down below in the description box, so please be sure to head there. And down in that description box is going to be all the products that I used. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button, and do consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And big thank you to you all for hanging out with me, hitting that like and subscribe, and using my affiliate links. You guys are fabulous. I'll see you soon. Bye.